When Blake made that joke in German, laughing with his colleagues about my adorable little security guard job at the downtown office building, I let him finish. I let him describe how I checked badges and probably ate donuts all day, while they did real work. I watched his smug smile, the way his friends chuckled along, how he threw his arm around his new fiancée like he'd dodged a bullet by leaving me. Then I responded. In flawless German. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're a subscriber, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Actually, Blake, for 6 years I translated intercepted communications for SEAL team operations. Your firm's merger last year? The one you thought you secured through your brilliant negotiation? I was the translator who prevented a terrorist attack on that exact summit. You're welcome. His face went completely blank. His fiancée's mouth fell open. 3 of his colleagues, including the CEO he'd been desperately trying to impress, stared at me like I'd just materialized from thin air. Because the quiet, simple ex-girlfriend who worked security and never talked about her past? She'd been listening to every condescending comment he'd made in German for the past 4 months. Every single one. I'm standing in my small apartment, the one Blake used to call, charmingly modest, which was code for, embarrassingly beneath me, staring at the cream-colored envelope that arrived this morning. Heavy cardstock. Embossed logo. The Wellington Group cordially invites you to our annual charity gala benefiting veteran services. Saturday, October 14th, 7 p.m. The Grand Ballroom at the Ashford Hotel. Blake Wellington. Of course. His father's company, hosting a veterans charity event. The irony isn't lost on me. The invitation came to my current address, which means someone did research. Blake's assistant, probably. He would have insisted on inviting all relevant community members, and apparently my security supervisor position at Morrison Tower qualified me as relevant. Or maybe, and this is more likely, he wanted me there. Wanted me to see his success, his beautiful new fiancée, his important friends. Wanted to prove he'd moved up. I should throw it away. Instead, I pin it to my refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a helicopter. The same kind that extracted me from 3 different hot zones during my time with the teams. My phone buzzes. It's Maria Rodriguez, former Army intelligence and current best friend. We met during a joint operation in Iraq 6 years ago. Did you get it? Unfortunately. Are you going? I stare at that question. 3 years ago, when Blake and I broke up, I'd already been out of active service for 18 months. The Navy had set me up with the security job as part of my cover for ongoing contract work. Classified translation projects. Deep background analysis on intercepted communications. Blake never knew. When he told me he needed someone more ambitious, someone who matched his trajectory, I didn't correct him. Didn't tell him that while he was celebrating closing deals, I was preventing international incidents he'd never hear about. I'm thinking about it. Emma. Don't. He's not worth it. Maybe I just want free food and to support veteran services. Bullshit. You want to make him regret underestimating you. She's right. But it's more than that. For 3 years, I've been overlooked. I've worn my security uniform, checked IDs in the Morrison Tower lobby, smiled politely when people, including Blake, treated me like furniture. I'll think about it, I text back, which we both know means I've already decided. I need to explain how Blake and I happened, because otherwise none of this makes sense. We met 4 years ago at a coffee shop near Morrison Tower. I was 3 months into my security job, still adjusting to checking badges by day and translating intercepted communications from terrorist cells by night. He was the sharp-dressed guy who ordered complicated espresso drinks and left generous tips. He asked me out. I said yes, mostly because I was lonely and he seemed stable. The kind of person who wouldn't ask complicated questions about my past. For a year, it worked. I kept my classified work separate. Blake thought I was a security guard with a boring government contract side gig. He'd introduce me to his friends as Emma, she works in security, and I'd smile and nod. His mother once asked me if I'd ever considered doing more with my life. The truth? I was running psychological profiles on high-value targets. I was translating communications that led to preventing 3 separate attacks on U.S. interests abroad. I was consulting on hostage negotiations where my linguistic analysis meant life or death. But sure, Mrs. Wellington, I'd definitely consider doing more. Blake ended things 3 years ago, right after making junior partner. We were at an expensive restaurant, and he'd ordered wine that cost more than my weekly paycheck. Emma, you're wonderful, but I need to be realistic about my future. About the kind of partner who makes sense for where I'm going. He needed someone more polished. Someone who understood his world. Someone who wasn't just a security guard. I could have told him then. Could have explained that I held a top secret/SCI clearance. That I'd worked with SEAL teams. That the boring government contract work had probably saved more lives than his entire firm's charitable foundation ever would. Instead, I said, I understand, and finished my pasta. Because I'd spent 6 years in an environment where ego got people killed. Where the loudest voice was usually wrong. Where real power came from competence, not credentials you could hang on a wall. Blake collected accomplishments like trophies. I collected skills that couldn't be displayed. Here's the thing about Blake, he thinks speaking German makes him sophisticated. He studied abroad in Munich during college, spent a semester drinking beer and pretending to understand Nietzsche, and came back with adequate tourist German. What Blake doesn't know is that my mother was born in Berlin. She moved to the United States when she was 19, met my father, but never stopped speaking German at home. I grew up bilingual. German was my first language. By the time the Navy recruited me, I spoke German the way native speakers do, with regional dialect awareness, cultural context, idiomatic precision. The kind that let me translate intercepted communications between German nationals involved in international arms dealing. 4 months ago, when Blake got engaged to Phoebe Roderick, a lawyer at his firm, appropriately polished and ambitious, he started using German as a private language. He does it at Morrison Tower, making comments in German, thinking no one understands. Including about me. Last month, he walked through with colleagues, and one asked who I was. Blake responded in German, "Oh, that's Emma. My ex. She checks badges now." Dodged a bullet there. 2 weeks ago, Phoebe asked about his day. He responded in German, "Just another tedious morning." Though I suppose her morning is more tedious, sitting at that desk, watching people actually accomplish things. The comments have been accumulating. Little dismissals, casual cruelties, all in a language he assumes is safe. I've been keeping mental notes. Every comment, every casual dismissal, every joke made at my expense. The way I used to catalog intercepted communications, noting patterns and building profiles. Because 6 years in naval special warfare taught me, information is ammunition. You collect it, catalog it, and wait for the exact right moment to use it. That charity gala invitation? That might be the moment. Let me tell you who I actually am, because Blake's version, the simple security guard with no ambition, is fiction. My name is Emma Hogan. For 6 years, I was a linguist attached to Naval Special Warfare Group 1. My official designation, cryptologic technician interpretive. What that really meant, I listened when bad people talked, and I made sure the SEALs knew exactly what they were walking into. I speak 7 languages fluently. German, Arabic, Pashto, Farsi, Russian, Mandarin, and English. I can understand 4 more well enough to catch context and intent. My brain can hear a conversation in Arabic, translate it to English, and simultaneously listen to a second conversation in Farsi. It's not a party trick. It's a weapon. The Navy found me during my junior year at Georgetown. I was a linguistics major with a minor in Middle Eastern Studies. A recruiter showed up at my apartment one Thursday afternoon. By Friday, I was filling out security clearance paperwork. They fast-tracked me through language school. By 23, I was in operations centers listening to intercepted communications and telling men with guns where the threats were hiding. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. My first deployment was Afghanistan. I was assigned to a SEAL platoon running missions in Helmand province. Listen to enemy communications, provide real-time translation, occasionally interrogate detainees. Simple. Right. Most of what I did is still classified, but some has been declassified now. Those files sit in a locked drawer in my apartment. Operation Copper Shield, the one that saved Blake's life, though he doesn't know it yet. That's declassified. A diplomatic summit in Germany where I spent 72 hours translating communications between 3 terrorist cells planning to level the hotel. SEAL Team 3 neutralized 8 men and enough C4 to bring down half the block, all because I pieced together their plan from fragments of conversations. I have citations from admirals, commendations from generals, letters from the State Department. None of it goes on resumes. None of it gets mentioned at dinner parties. When I finally left active duty, it wasn't by choice. Stress fractures in both legs from a hard landing during an extraction in Pakistan. The doctors said desk job or transition out. Sitting in an office at some Navy base felt worse than leaving entirely. But the Navy doesn't let people with my clearance level just disappear. They set me up with the security job at Morrison Tower as cover. Gave me an identity as low-level security. And then they kept calling. Encrypted messages at odd hours. USB drives delivered by courier. The work continued, just differently. Days checking IDs, nights translating intercepted communications from terror cells planning attacks that would never happen because I'd helped stop them. Morrison Tower is a 30-story office building in downtown Seattle. Generic glass and steel. I work the main security desk from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., 5 days a week. Most people don't see security guards. We're wallpaper, necessary but unnoticed. Blake's firm, Wellington and Associates, has offices on the 23rd floor. I've seen Blake roughly once a month since we broke up. He comes through the lobby with colleagues or clients, never making eye contact, never pausing his conversation as he swipes his badge. He's never once recognized me in uniform. I'm furniture to him. The first few times it stung. Now I prefer it. Because every time Blake walks past without seeing me, he misses the classified tablet hidden under my desk, the one that pings when there's new translation work. He misses the irony of dismissing someone who probably has higher clearance than most government officials his firm lobbies. What Blake also doesn't know, Morrison Tower isn't random. It houses 3 companies with government contracts. 2 defense contractors and a cybersecurity firm doing NSA work. My position here isn't random, it's strategic. I'm not just checking badges. I'm running background awareness on everyone who enters. I'm a failsafe, a quiet layer of protection no one knows exists. 4 months ago, when Blake got engaged to Phoebe Roderick, something shifted. The occasional German comment became systematic. I started documenting everything. Time, date, exact wording, witnesses. Building a case the way I used to build intelligence reports. October 8th, 9:47 a.m. At least we don't have to worry about security here listening. They probably barely understand English. October 10th, 2:15 p.m. I'm so glad I'm not stuck with Emma. Imagine her at our wedding, how embarrassing. October 12th, 8:33 a.m. The security people here are so invisible. I could talk about anyone and they'd never know. By October 13th, I have 17 instances. 17 times Blake used German as a shield. 17 pieces of evidence that he spent 4 months casually mocking me. I create a document. Translate each comment. Add timestamps. It reads like an intelligence report, proof of pattern, proof of intent. My mother calls one evening while I'm reviewing the document. We always speak German. You sound different, Liebling, she says. What's happening? I'm going to a gala. Blake's hosting it. Long pause. Are you sure that's wise? Probably not. But it's necessary. Then be careful. And remember, the best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't see. She laughs softly. I taught you well. I look at the invitation on my refrigerator, at the document full of Blake's insults, at the locked drawer containing proof of who I really am. Blake Wellington is about to learn that assumptions are dangerous. And underestimating the quiet person in the corner can be devastating. I make the final decision on a Tuesday morning while sitting at my security desk, watching Blake walk through without a glance. He's speaking rapid German on his phone about the gala, about seating arrangements. As he passes, he switches topics. Ja, und die Sicherheit hier ist lächerlich einfach. Jeder konnte durchkommen. Yes, and the security here is ridiculously simple. Anyone could get through. He's literally insulting my job performance while I'm sitting 3 feet away. I text Maria, I'm going to the gala. Her response, finally. What do you need? Everything we kept in storage. And I need you there. Wouldn't miss it. The next 12 days are careful preparation. Not hair appointments or dress shopping. I'm doing reconnaissance. I pull up the guest list for the gala, posted on the Wellington Group's website. And there they are, Rear Admiral Jonathan Cartwright. Carter Rudd. 2 retired commanders who work in defense contracting now. Blake has invited my entire professional network to witness whatever he has planned. Admiral Cartwright was my commanding officer for 3 years. He signed my commendations. Carter Rudd worked with me on 4 deployments. He once told me I was the best linguist he'd ever worked with. I screenshot the guest list and send it to Maria, look who's going to be there. Her response, oh, this is going to be magnificent. For the next week, I continue documenting every Blake appearance, every German comment. October 14th, 1:20 p.m., with his father, Jonathan Wellington. Having Emma work in our building is unfortunate, but at least she's forgettable enough to overlook. By the morning of the gala, I have my 17 documented instances. Each quote in German with English translation. Timestamps. Context. Witnesses. Formatted like the intelligence reports I used to write, clean, professional, devastating. Saturday afternoon, Maria arrives with garment bags and wine. Option 1, your dress blues. Full medals, full regalia. The uniform is pristine, stored in climate control since retirement. The ribbons arranged perfectly. Too aggressive, I say. I don't want to look like I'm proving something. Option 2. A simple black cocktail dress. Blend in, let your words do the work. What's option 3? Maria reveals a midnight blue evening gown. This one says, I belong here, I've always belonged here, and you were blind not to see it. This one. We sit on my living room floor with wine and the dress hanging like a promise. Blake will do something public, I say. He'll introduce me to someone important as his ex who works in security, make it sound charitable. And he'll do it in German. Exactly. He'll make some comment thinking it's safe. And then? And then I respond. In German. Perfect, fluent, native level. I let him know I've understood every word for 4 months. Maria leans back. You're going to dismantle him. No. I'm going to let him dismantle himself. Admiral Cartwright will be there. Carter Rudd will be there. People who know exactly who I am. I don't need to prove anything to Blake. I just need to reveal what was always true. One question, Maria says. Are you doing this for revenge? I think about 3 years of being dismissed. About every woman who's been underestimated, every veteran whose service has been minimized. I'm doing it because someone needs to remind Blake Wellington that the world doesn't revolve around his perception of it. That there are people doing things he'll never understand, making sacrifices he'll never appreciate, operating at levels he'll never reach. And one of those people has been checking his badge every morning. Maria raises her glass. To Saturday night. To correction of false narratives. At 5:30 p.m., my phone buzzes. Admiral Cartwright, Emma, looking forward to catching up. Also wanted to give you a heads up, Blake approached me last week asking for war stories to share at the gala. I declined, but thought you should know he's planning to leverage military presence for social capital. I show Maria. He's going to use veterans as props while insulting you, she says. Very on brand for Blake. I put on the midnight blue dress. Maria does my hair and makeup with professional precision. When I look in the mirror, I see someone I used to be, confident, powerful, unapologetic. There she is, Maria says quietly. We leave at 6:30 p.m., driving through rain-slicked Seattle streets. I've spent 3 years being overlooked. Tonight, I'm going to be visible. The Ashford Hotel appears through the rain, lit up like a stage. Last chance to back out, Maria says. I look at Blake through the glass doors, confident and smiling. Not backing out. We step into the rain. The night is about to get very interesting. The Ashford Hotel's grand ballroom is excessive in that way expensive things try to look tasteful. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, roses and eucalyptus centerpieces. A string quartet plays in the corner. About 200 people. I do a quick scan, identify exits, assess crowd dynamics, locate key individuals. Automatic after 6 years. Admiral Cartwright is near the bar in his dress uniform. Carter Rudd stands by the windows with a group of men who have that military bearing. I spot the retired commanders. Blake has assembled quite the audience without realizing it. We check in. Emma Hogan and guest. Table 17. Not Blake's table. Table 17 is toward the back, near the kitchen doors. The cheap seats. Perfect, I say. We navigate toward our table. Table 17 has 6 other occupants, the filler guests. An older couple, the Howards. A nervous young man named Evan from accounting. 2 women in their 30s, Dorothy and Gracie, Phoebe's college roommates. How do you know Blake? Dorothy asks. We dated a few years ago. Oh. That must be interesting. Gracie leans in. Phoebe mentioned Blake's ex worked in security. That's actually really cool. Security work is important, right? Maria catches my eye, fighting a smile. At 7:30, the quartet fades and Blake takes the stage. Podium with the Wellington Group logo displayed behind him. He looks comfortable, confident. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Tonight is about honoring those who've served our country, and supporting programs that help veterans transition to civilian life. People nod along. Blake is good at this, making people feel part of something meaningful. We're honored to have several distinguished guests, including Rear Admiral Jonathan Cartwright, whose service has been extraordinary. Blake gestures toward the Admiral, who nods politely but without warmth. The work our veterans do is often overlooked. They serve in ways most of us will never fully understand. Tonight, we celebrate that service. 5 more minutes about charitable initiatives, about partnerships. Well rehearsed, probably written by marketing. Polite applause. Blake steps down, the quartet resumes. Waiters circulate with the first course. Halfway through dinner, Blake makes his rounds table by table. Phoebe with him, hand tucked into his elbow. 3 tables away. Then 2. Then 1. Maria squeezes my hand under the table, ready. Blake arrives with his smile. His eyes slide past me initially, then snap back. Emma? Genuinely surprised. I didn't realize you'd be here. I was invited. It's for a good cause. Of course. He recovers quickly. Everyone, this is Emma Hogan. She works security at Morrison Tower. Emma, this is my fiancée, Phoebe Roderick. Phoebe extends her hand, smile not reaching her eyes. Nice to finally meet. Congratulations on your engagement. Thank you. Blake tells me you two dated a few years ago. We did. Well, I'm glad you could come support veteran causes. Must be nice to have an evening off from the security desk. There it is. That's subtle dismissal wrapped in politeness. Blake is about to move when Finn approaches, a colleague from Morrison Tower, vice president of something. Blake, got a second? Finn notices me. Oh, hey. You're the security guard from the lobby, right? That's right. Finn turns to Blake and others who've drifted over, 4 men in expensive suits forming a circle around our table. We were discussing the Munich office security protocols. After that incident last month. Blake nods seriously. Right. Thank God our team caught it. He launches into a story about Wellington and Associates security measures, about preventing corporate espionage at their Munich location. Then Blake switches to German, grinning at Finn, obwohlig bezweifel, das unser Lobby-Sicherheit hier solche Bedrohungen erkennen konnte. Though I doubt our lobby security here could identify such threats. The men laugh. Finn responds in German, his accent worse than Blake's. Neja, Badge scannen ist wahrscheinlich das Maximum ihrer Fähigkeiten. Well, scanning badges is probably the extent of their capabilities. More laughter. Blake glances at me dismissively. Wenigstens ist sie zuverlässig beim Badge scannen. Man muss realistisch Erwartungen haben. At least she's reliable at scanning badges. One must have realistic expectations. Phoebe laughs at something she doesn't understand. Carter Rudd has appeared nearby, watching. Admiral Cartwright has drifted closer. Blake continues in German, something about Munich nightlife, about clubs during his semester abroad. This is it. The moment he's created, surrounded by witnesses, speaking in what he thinks is a private language. I let him finish his story. Let him get to the punchline. Let the laughter ripple through his group. Then I set down my fork and stand. Deliberate, controlled. Taking up space. Blake pauses. Emma? Everything okay? I smile. Then I speak, in German, with native fluency. Eigentlich, Blake, habe ich jetzt Wort verstanden, das du in den letzten 4 Monaten auf Deutsch gesagt hast. Actually, Blake, I've understood every word you've said in German for the past 4 months. Blake's face goes completely blank. Finn's mouth falls open. I continue in German. Einschließlich der 7 verschiedenen Gelegenheiten, bei denen du Michigan bei Morrison Tower beleidigt hast. Including the 17 different occasions you insulted me at Morrison Tower. Phoebe looks between us, confused. What's happening? I switch to English. Blake makes jokes in German because he thinks it's safe. Comments about how I'm just a security guard, how I'm forgettable. He said all of this thinking I couldn't understand. Pause. My mother was born in Berlin. German was my first language. I've spoken it fluently my entire life. Blake tries to speak. Nothing comes out. And for 6 years, I used that fluency as a Navy linguist attached to naval special warfare. I translated intercepted communications for SEAL team operations. Admiral Cartwright steps into view. Carter Rudd is grinning. The ballroom has gone very quiet. Blake finally finds his voice. You, what? I think, I say calmly, we should probably talk. Blake recovers faster than I expected, credit where it's due, he didn't build a career without learning to handle complications. His face cycles through shock, then settles into that boardroom mask of confidence. Emma, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I never meant. You never meant for me to understand, I interrupt. That's different from not meaning what you said. Phoebe touches his arm. Blake, what is she talking about? What did you say? He ignores her, focuses on me. I can see calculation happening, how to minimize this, how to spin it. Look, if I said something that offended you, I apologize. But you have to understand. October 8th, 9:47 a.m. I pull out my phone, document ready. You told your colleagues, in German, that security at Morrison Tower probably barely understands English. October 10th, you told Phoebe I'd be embarrassing at your wedding. Blake's face pales again. Should I continue? I have 15 more. Exact quotes. Timestamps. Finn steps back, expression shifting to horror. The other colleagues exchange glances, distance themselves, or defend him. You were spying on me? Blake's voice rises. When cornered, go on offense. Make yourself the victim. I was doing my job. Sitting at my desk while you walked past making comments you thought I couldn't understand. That's not spying, Blake. That's you being careless. More people are paying attention now. Heads turning, conversations pausing. The quartet still plays, but it's background noise to the unfolding drama. Blake realizes we have an audience. He straightens, adjusts his bow tie, preparing to perform. Everyone, I think we're having an unfortunate misunderstanding. Emma is understandably upset about our breakup. I'm not upset about the breakup. I'm upset about 4 months of mockery in a language you thought I didn't understand. And she's chosen tonight to air personal grievances. He continues as if I haven't spoken, playing to the crowd. I appreciate everything Emma does at Morrison Tower. Security work is important. But I think this is more about unresolved feelings than anything I actually said. It's masterful deflection. Make this about emotion, about a bitter ex. I can see some people nodding, buying his narrative. Phoebe has her hand on Blake's arm, presenting unity. Her expression is sympathetic toward Blake, dismissive toward me. Blake, I say, voice still calm. You told colleagues I was nobody worth considering. You joked about how, at least her job is simple enough that she can't screw it up. You said I was the most boring person you ever dated. I never. In German. You said all of this in German. October 13th, 8:33 a.m. You were on your phone in the Morrison Tower lobby. You said, Die sicher Heizlut hier sind so unsichtbar. Ich konnte über jeden reden und sie werden es nie wissen. I translate for the audience. The security people here are so invisible. I could talk about anyone and they'd never know. Blake's jaw tightens. You're taking things out of context. What context makes that acceptable? Blake makes his critical error then. He turns to the crowd, to his colleagues and friends, and tries to diminish me one more time. Look, Emma has always been sensitive. She worked some kind of government contract job when we dated, nothing particularly impressive, and I think she's built it up in her mind. This whole translator thing, I'm sure she did some translation work, but let's be realistic about what that actually means. He's trying to make me small again, fit me back into his box. And he's doing it in front of 200 people, including several who know the truth. I see Admiral Cartwright's expression darken. Carter Rudd crosses his arms, waiting. Some kind of government contract job, I repeat. Is that how you describe work with naval special warfare? Naval, Blake stops, processes. Wait, you worked with the Navy? For 6 years. I was a cryptologic technician interpretive, attached to SEAL team operations. I held a top-secret/SCI clearance. I translated intercepted communications in 7 languages across 4 theaters of operation. I'm speaking clearly now, projecting. Not shouting, but making sure everyone hears. I provided real-time translation during combat operations. I built psychological profiles of high-value targets. I spent 72 hours in a surveillance van during Operation Copper Shield, translating communications that prevented a terrorist attack on a diplomatic summit. Blake's shaking his head. That's impossible. You never mentioned. I couldn't mention it. It was classified. Most of it still is. But some was declassified 6 months ago, which is how I can talk about it now. You're making this up to embarrass me. I don't need to make anything up. The truth is sufficient. Admiral Cartwright steps forward. His presence shifts everything. You can't dismiss a rear admiral in dress uniform. The medals on his chest catch the chandelier light. "Mr. Wellington," the admiral says, voice carrying command authority. "I believe I can provide context here." Blake turns, recognizing the admiral but not understanding what's about to happen. "Admiral Cartwright, I apologize for this disruption." "No need to apologize to me. But you might want to apologize to Miss Hogan. I had the privilege of serving as her commanding officer for 3 years. She was one of the finest linguists I've ever worked with." The silence is absolute. Blake's mouth opens, closes. You know her?" "Know her?" The admiral's expression is stern. "Son, I signed 2 commendations for her work. She received a Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal for her actions during a hostage rescue operation in Syria. Her translation of a 3-minute phone call provided the exact location of 2 American journalists and saved their lives." He addresses the crowd now. "Ms. Hogan spent 6 years in service to this country, operating in some of the most dangerous environments imaginable. She worked with elite operators, provided intelligence that saved lives, and did it all without recognition because her work was classified. The fact that she's been working quietly in security for the past 3 years while still providing contract translation services to the Department of Defense speaks to her dedication and discretion." Blake looks like he's been hit. Phoebe has gone very still. Carter Rudd joins the admiral. He's 6'3" with the build from years of training, and he's grinning in a way that probably makes Blake uncomfortable. "Blake Wellington, right?" Carter extends his hand, which Blake shakes automatically. "Carter Rudd. Ran SEAL team operations for 8 years. Worked with Emma, we call her Hogan, on 4 different deployments. She saved my life more times than I can count." "For deployments," Blake repeats weakly. "Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and one I can't name because it's still classified." Carter's still grinning. "Your ex-girlfriend is kind of a legend in our community, man. We literally use her work as case studies in linguistic training." I see Blake doing math, trying to reconcile the woman he dated with what he's hearing now. "So when you say she worked in security?" Finn speaks up. "She worked in security as cover," the admiral says bluntly. "Because her actual work required anonymity. Because people with her skill set don't advertise what they do. Because unlike some people," his tone makes clear who he means, "she understands that genuine service doesn't require an audience." The ballroom has gone completely silent. 200 people watching Blake Wellington realize he's been dismissing someone who surpasses him in every way that matters. I let the admiral's words settle. Blake is still standing there, his facade cracking. But he's not completely broken yet. I can see him trying to find an angle. "I had no idea," he finally says. "Emma, why didn't you tell me?" "I couldn't. It was classified. You knew I did government contract work. You never asked for details. But after we broke up, you made clear I wasn't worth your time. Why would I share anything with someone who'd already decided I was beneath them?" Phoebe is whispering to Blake, but he shakes his head, trying to focus. That's when I drop the next piece. "Blake, do you remember that merger negotiation in Munich? The one in 2018 that you always talk about? The one that made your career?" His eyes narrow. "What about it?" "You were at the Bayerischer Hof Hotel for 3 days. October 15th through 17th. Big diplomatic summit, lots of international executives, multiple deals being negotiated. I remember. It was one of the biggest successes of my career. You also almost died that week." The statement lands like a physical blow. Blake actually steps back. "What?" I pull up a declassified news report on my phone about Operation Copper Shield. Just the public acknowledgement that a terrorist plot was disrupted. There were 8 men with enough explosives to level that hotel. They had detailed floor plans, new security protocols. They were planning to detonate during the closing reception, the one you attended. Blake's face goes white. People are pulling out phones, searching. I spent 72 hours in a surveillance van 3 blocks from your hotel. I translated communications between 3 different cells, in German, Arabic, and Russian. I identified the bombers, their timeline, their exact positions. SEAL Team 3 neutralized the threat 6 hours before the planned attack. Carter nods. I was there. I was one of the operators on that mission. We pulled out 8 hostiles and enough C4 to bring down half the block. All because Hogan pieced together their plan from fragments of conversations most people wouldn't have caught. You were there, Blake says, not quite a question. You were in Munich. I was 3 blocks away, making sure you and 300 other people got to go home alive. The room has erupted in shocked whispers. Someone in the back curses softly. Another officer stands, then sits, unsure what protocol demands. Admiral Cartwright clears his throat. Mr. Wellington, since this has become public discussion, should mention that Operation Copper Shield wasn't isolated. Ms. Hogan's work has directly or indirectly protected American interests in at least 15 separate operations that I'm aware of. He lets that number sink in. 15 operations where her linguistic analysis provided intelligence that saved lives, prevented attacks, or enabled successful missions. And that's not counting the ongoing contract work she continues to do. Blake is shaking his head slowly. 15. You prevented 15. That we can discuss, I correct. There are others still classified. Operations I can't mention, places I can't name. Dorothy from my table speaks up suddenly. Wait, so while Blake was breaking up with you because you weren't ambitious enough, you were literally saving lives? I wasn't saving lives to be ambitious. I was doing my job. The fact that Blake didn't know or understand doesn't make it less real. Finn turns to Blake. Man, you told us she was just a security guard. You've been making jokes about her for years. I didn't know. You didn't ask, I interrupt. That's different. You made assumptions based on what you could see, the uniform, the desk, the simple title. You never considered there might be more because you'd already decided what I was worth. Maria, who's been watching quietly, stands now. Emma's been very kind about the German comments. She's mentioned a few. But I've heard about all 17 documented instances, and some are significantly worse than boring or simple. Blake's eyes snap to Maria. Who are you? Maria Rodriguez. Former Army Intelligence, 8 years with JSOC. Emma and I worked together on certain projects. And I've listened to her describe every single comment you've made. She pulls out her phone. October 27th. You told Phoebe, in German, that Emma was the biggest mistake of your life, and that you were embarrassed you ever introduced her to your family. November 2nd, you told Finn that security guards like Emma were barely qualified to flip burgers. Finn's face flushes. He's hearing his name attached to these comments now. November 8th, 2 days ago, you walked through Morrison Tower with your father. You told him, in German, that having Emma work in your building was unfortunate, but at least she was forgettable enough to overlook. Blake opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. The evidence is documented, time-stamped, undeniable. I pull up my official service record, declassified portions. Department of the Navy letterhead, official seals, classification markings. This is my DD 214. It lists my dates of service, my rank at discharge, my specialty. Cryptologic Technician Interpretive. Honorable Discharge. I scroll to the awards section. Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal with Combat V. That V stands for Valor, Blake. Joint Service Commendation Medal. Multiple Combat Deployment Ribbons and Service Medals. Each medal I name makes Blake's face tighter. My service record lists 7 languages with proficiency ratings. German is level 4+, near native fluency. Arabic, Pashto, and Farsi at level 3. These ratings come from defense language proficiency tests, significantly more rigorous than civilian certifications. Carter comes closer. Most military linguists are happy to hit level 2 in one language. Level 3 is exceptional. Hogan has level 3 or higher in 4 languages. That's not normal. The Navy invested approximately $400,000 in my language training alone, I add. Not a security guard who checks badges and eats donuts. Admiral Cartwright steps forward, full commander mode. Let me provide context. Operation Copper Shield involved 3 terrorist cells coordinating an attack on a diplomatic summit. The intelligence picture was fragmented, intercepts in multiple languages, from multiple sources, with no clear pattern. He ensures everyone's paying attention. Ms. Hogan spent 72 consecutive hours in a mobile operations center, translating communications as they came in. She identified patterns, noticed phrases being used as codes, and built psychological profiles based on communication styles. Her analysis provided the exact timeline and methodology. 72 hours straight, someone asks. Straight. She slept in 20-minute intervals when there were gaps. Coffee, protein bars, and determination. Her analysis was so accurate that when we conducted the takedown, everything happened exactly as she'd predicted. He looks at Blake directly. You gave a toast at that summit. Shook hands with executives from 6 countries. And you had no idea the reason you were alive to celebrate was because someone you would later dismiss as just a security guard had worked for 3 days straight to make sure you didn't get blown up. Blake's mouth opens, closes. Carter takes over. Operation Silent Thunder, 2 American journalists kidnapped in Syria. We had one intercept, a 3-minute phone call. Emma didn't just translate words. She analyzed background noise, identified ambient sounds, caught a regional dialect marker that narrowed location to a specific district. She noticed a phrase suggesting military training. From 3 minutes of audio, someone murmurs. From 3 minutes. She turned a vague area into a specific location. We hit that compound 8 hours later. Both journalists came home alive. That's not translation, that's intelligence analysis at the highest level. A man steps forward, 50s, expensive suit, silver hair. I'm David Morrison. I own Morrison Tower. Blake's eyes widen. Morrison is his landlord. I hired Emma 3 years ago on DoD recommendation. They needed someone with her skill set and clearance level positioned in my building because I host several companies with sensitive government contracts. Emma isn't just security, she's counterintelligence. She identifies threats, notices patterns regular security wouldn't catch, provides protection my corporate tenants don't even know exists. He turns to Blake. You've walked past her desk hundreds of times. Every time, she was doing threat assessment. She's caught 2 industrial espionage attempts, identified 3 individuals attempting unauthorized access, and flagged a potential breach that would have cost my tenants millions. You mean, Blake starts. I mean she's a highly trained intelligence professional in a cover position. Badge checking is real, but it's camouflage for her actual work. And I pay her accordingly, she makes more than most of my corporate tenants. That lands like a bomb. Blake recalculating everything. Maria stands. The security job is Emma's day job. Her night job is still translation for the Department of Defense, State Department, and 2 intelligence agencies I can't name. Contract basis, providing linguistic analysis and cultural consultation for ongoing operations. She looks at Blake. When you were dating her, did you wonder why she seemed tired sometimes? Why she'd be unavailable for evening plans? Why she had a locked home office? Blake doesn't answer, but his expression suggests he's remembering. She was working. Translating intercepted communications, providing real-time analysis during active operations, writing threat assessments going directly to decision-makers at the highest government levels. She did this while dating you, while attending your business dinners, while playing supportive girlfriend. How much does that contract work pay? Someone asks. Maria looks at me. I nod. My contract rate is $200 per hour. Hire for emergency or real-time operational support. Last year, I earned approximately $180,000 from contract work alone. Combined with my Morrison Towers salary, my total income is substantially higher than the average Wellington and Associates junior partner. I let that sink in. Blake broke up with me partly because he needed someone who matched his financial trajectory. I was already ahead of him. I never needed your money, Blake. I never needed your status or connections. I had my own career, my own achievements, my own security. But you never asked. You just assumed. More people come forward now. Senator Patricia Howard approaches. Ms. Hogan, I sit on the Senate Armed Services Committee. Your name has come across my desk at least 3 times in classified briefings. I can't discuss specifics, but I want you to know your work has been briefed to congressional leadership as exemplary intelligence support. Blake looks like he might pass out. A young man in marine dress blues steps forward. Ma'am, I was part of security detail for Operation Sandstorm. Your translation of that arms dealer's communications, that whole network came down because of your work. More testimonials, a State Department official. A defense contractor. A retired Army colonel. Each person adds another layer, another piece of evidence that I am not, have never been, the simple security guard Blake convinced himself I was. Phoebe has moved several steps away from Blake. She's standing with her college roommates, furious whispers. Dorothy keeps shooting Blake looks that could melt steel. Finn has pulled out his phone, clearly searching for information. Blake stands in the center of this storm, realizing something crucial. He's not just wrong about me. He's been publicly, spectacularly, irrefutably wrong in front of everyone who matters in his professional and social world. Admiral Cartwright checks his watch, then looks at Blake. Mr. Wellington, I believe you mentioned wanting to hear war stories. I think Ms. Hogan has provided excellent examples. Would you like to hear more, or have you learned enough? The question hangs like a challenge. The crowd waits to see how Blake will respond. Blake's face has cycled through so many colors tonight I'm genuinely concerned about his health. Right now he's settled on a mottled red suggesting rage or humiliation, probably both. This is ridiculous, he says, voice desperate. You're all acting like I committed some crime. I made a few comments in German. Private comments. How was I supposed to know she understood? That's the point, Blake, I say quietly. You didn't think about whether I understood. You didn't care. You just wanted to say cruel things without consequences. They weren't cruel, they were. He stops, realizing there's no good finish to that sentence. Accurate? Maria suggests. Honest? Just jokes. Blake rounds on her. Who even are you? You're not part of this. I'm Emma's friend. I'm also someone who's watched her come home from Morrison Tower for 3 years, telling me about the things you said. And I'm someone who knows what it costs to serve this country. So yeah, I'm part of this. Phoebe touches Blake's arm hesitantly. Blake, maybe we should just... Just what? He spins toward her, and I see her flinch. Just apologize? Just pretend this isn't calculated humiliation at my own event? She planned this. She came here specifically to embarrass me. No, I say, cutting through his rising hysteria. I came here because you invited me. You wanted me to see your success, your important friends, your beautiful fiancée. You wanted me to feel small. I just decided not to play along anymore. Finn steps forward, separating himself from Blake's other colleagues. His face is flushed, deeply uncomfortable. Blake, man, I need to say something. Not now, Finn. No, now. Finn's voice is firm. I've been listening to you make comments about Emma for months. In German, in English, in the office, in the lobby. And I never said anything because you're my boss's son. He looks at me. But I speak German too. Not as well as you, but well enough. I understood every word Blake said. And I stood there and laughed along because it seemed harmless. Because you never reacted. It did bother me, I say. I know that now. And I'm sorry. I should have said something. Should have told Blake he was out of line. He turns back to Blake. But here's the thing, I also heard you talking about the Munich summit. Last week, in the conference room. You were telling that story again, about how you negotiated through that minor security scare, how you stayed calm while everyone panicked. Blake's eyes narrow. What about it? You lied. There was no minor security scare. There was a planned terrorist attack that would have killed everyone in that hotel. The only reason you're alive to brag about that negotiation is because people like Emma stopped the attack before you even knew about it. And then you stood in our conference room and took credit for being brave during a threat you only survived because of someone else's competence. The accusation lands hard. Several people nod, pulling out phones again. I didn't know, Blake starts. You didn't know because you never asked, Finn interrupts. You came back from Munich telling everyone how you handled a crisis. You made yourself the hero of a story where you were actually the oblivious bystander who got saved by people doing actual dangerous work. A commotion at the entrance draws attention. Jonathan Wellington, Blake's father, CEO of the Wellington Group, has arrived. He's in his 70s, distinguished in a tuxedo, and looks confused by the crowd in the center of his charity event. What's going on here? He asks, voice carrying authority. Blake? Blake looks like a child caught doing something wrong. Dad, it's nothing. Just a misunderstanding. It doesn't look like nothing. Jonathan surveys the scene, his son in the center of a crowd, his son's fiancée standing apart, an admiral in uniform, and a significant portion of guests clustered around watching drama unfold. Admiral Cartwright steps forward. Mr. Wellington, I'm Rear Admiral Jonathan Cartwright. I believe you invited me to speak about veteran services tonight. Yes, of course, Admiral. I'm honored you could attend. Jonathan shakes his hand, still confused. But what's happening? Your son has been engaged in an unfortunate pattern of dismissive behavior toward a veteran, the Admiral says bluntly. A veteran who, coincidentally, saved his life during the Munich summit in 2018, though he was unaware of it at the time. Jonathan's eyes sharpen. He didn't build a successful company by being slow. Explain. So the Admiral does. Efficiently, without embellishment, he outlines my service record, my work on Operation Copper Shield, Blake's months of German commentary, tonight's revelation. Jonathan listens without interrupting, his expression darkening. When the Admiral finishes, Jonathan turns to Blake. Is this accurate? I didn't know, Blake starts, but his father cuts him off. Did you make comments about this woman in German, thinking she wouldn't understand? Blake hesitates, then nods. Did you mock her job, her capabilities, her worth? Another nod, smaller. And did she, in fact, work on the operation that prevented the attack in Munich? The attack that would have killed you? Blake's voice is barely a whisper. Apparently. Jonathan closes his eyes briefly. When he opens them, there's something cold in his expression. You're an idiot, Jonathan says flatly. Jonathan doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. The disappointment is more devastating than any amount of yelling. Blake, I have built this company over 40 years. 40 years of relationships, of reputation, of trust. And you've just damaged that reputation in front of 200 witnesses, including clients, partners, and community leaders whose respect we depend on. Dad, I can fix this. How? How do you fix publicly mocking a veteran? How do you fix insulting someone who saved your life? How do you fix making yourself look like an entitled fool in front of everyone who matters in this city? Blake has no answer. Jonathan turns to me. Ms. Hogan, I apologize on behalf of my family and my company. My son's behavior has been inexcusable. If there's anything I can do. There isn't, I say simply. This isn't about your company. This is about Blake learning that assumptions have consequences. Well, they will. Jonathan's voice is grim. Starting with his position at the firm. Blake, you're suspended pending review of your conduct. What? Blake's voice cracks. Dad, you can't. I can, and I am. This event was supposed to honor veterans. Instead, you've turned it into a spectacle that dishonors everything we're supporting. You're suspended for 30 days, minimum. And if I were you, I'd spend that time learning humility. Phoebe makes a small sound. She's still standing apart from Blake, and I notice she's removed her hand from where it would rest on his arm. Furthermore, Jonathan continues, I'll be making a substantial donation to veteran services organizations in Ms. Hogan's name. Not as payment, but as acknowledgement of the service she provided to this country and to my son, whether he appreciated it or not. Mr. Wellington, that's not necessary, I start, but he shakes his head. It's absolutely necessary. For my conscience, if nothing else. He looks at Blake again, and there's genuine sadness underneath the anger. I thought I taught you better than this, son. I thought I taught you to respect people regardless of job titles, to value substance over appearance, to understand that real worth isn't always visible on the surface. You did, Blake says weakly. Then you forgot those lessons. And tonight, you've been reminded in the most public, painful way possible. Jonathan turns to address the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption. The evening will continue as planned, and I hope you'll still enjoy the gala. But I wanted to make sure everyone here understands, the behavior my son displayed tonight does not represent the values of the Wellington Group or our family. He offers me his hand. Ms. Hogan, thank you for your service. And thank you for handling this situation with more grace than my son deserved. I shake his hand. Thank you, sir. Jonathan nods, then walks toward the bar. Blake stands alone now. Phoebe has moved to stand with her friends. His colleagues have created subtle distance. His father has publicly suspended him. The crowd that gathered to witness his humiliation is dispersing, breaking into smaller conversations. Carter approaches Blake, expression almost pitying. You know what the worst part is? It's not that you dismissed Emma. It's not even that you mocked her. It's that you had a genuine hero in your life, someone who did things most people can't imagine, and you were too busy looking at the surface to see it. You dated someone exceptional and never knew it. That's the real tragedy. He claps Blake on the shoulder, not gently, and walks away. Blake stands there, surrounded by the remnants of his carefully constructed evening, and finally I see something that might be actual understanding. Not just embarrassment or anger, but genuine recognition of what he's lost, what he failed to see. Emma, he says, voice hoarse. I wait. I'm sorry. 2 words. Too late, too inadequate, but at least something. I know, I say. But sorry doesn't undo 4 months of casual cruelty. It doesn't erase 3 years of walking past me like I don't exist. It just means you're finally experiencing consequences. I turn to Maria. I think I'm ready to go. She links her arm through mine. Best idea I've heard all night. We walk toward the exit, and people move aside to let us pass. Some nod respectfully. A few murmur support. Admiral Cartwright salutes as we pass, which makes my chest tight. As we reach the door, I hear Dorothy say loudly enough for Blake to hear, well, he's definitely not husband material. And despite everything, I smile. Maria and I make it to the lobby before I realize I need a moment. The adrenaline sustaining me for the past hour is fading, leaving behind satisfaction and exhaustion. Hold on, I say, stopping near the windows overlooking the hotel's entrance. The rain has stopped, leaving pavement slick and reflective under streetlights. You okay? Maria asks. Yeah. I just need a second. We stand there, watching valets retrieve cars, watching guests filter out. Through the glass doors, I can see the ballroom still lit up, the party continuing despite the drama. My phone buzzes. Admiral Cartwright, well executed, Hogan. Timing, evidence presentation, emotional control, textbook. Call me Monday. Have a contract opportunity that might interest you. I show Maria, who grins. Leave it to the Admiral to turn your ex's humiliation into a job opportunity. Another text from Carter, that was the best thing I've seen since retirement. Drinks on me next time you're in Virginia Beach. Also, I'm pretty sure Blake peed himself a little when his dad showed up. My phone keeps buzzing, messages from people I worked with years ago, people who were in that ballroom, people who follow military circles closely enough to have already heard. By tomorrow morning, this story will have spread to every SEAL team, every intelligence unit, every translation service that works with DoD. Blake Wellington's humiliation is about to become legend. The lobby doors open, and Phoebe steps out. She's alone, wrap pulled tight around her shoulders. She sees us and hesitates, then approaches slowly. "Emma," she says. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Maria tenses, but I nod. "Sure." Phoebe looks uncomfortable. I don't know how to say this without sounding, I had no idea. About my background? About any of it. Blake never told me about you beyond my ex who works security. He made it sound like the relationship ended because you weren't ambitious enough. That you were sweet but limited. That he'd outgrown you. That's what he believed. But it wasn't true. None of it was. And I'd been standing next to him for months while he made comments in German, and I didn't understand what he was saying, but I could tell it wasn't kind. And I never called him on it because, she stops, real shame in her expression. Because it was easier not to, I finish. Yeah. Phoebe pulls her wrap tighter. I'm not a good person. Not like you. I heard the way he talked about people, not just you, and I ignored it because he was successful and charming and my parents approved. I ignored all the signs that he's fundamentally unkind because it was convenient. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm not marrying him. She says it flatly, definitively. I can't marry someone who spent 4 months mocking someone who saved his life. I can't marry someone who's that oblivious to his own privilege, that dismissive of people he thinks are beneath him. What happens when I'm the one he's dismissing? What happens when I'm not convenient anymore? Maria makes a small approving sound. Phoebe reaches into her clutch and pulls out her engagement ring, a massive diamond. She looks at it for a moment, then closes her fist around it. Thank you, she says. For showing me who he really is before it was too late. She turns and walks back inside, presumably to find Blake and return his ring. Huh, Maria says. Did not see that coming. Me neither. We're almost to Maria's car when David Morrison emerges from the hotel. He must have been waiting, because he heads straight for us. Miss Hogan, one more moment. I stop, turn. Mr. Morrison. I wanted to clarify something I said in there about your work at Morrison Tower being counterintelligence. Yes? That was true, but incomplete. I hired you 3 years ago on DoD recommendation, yes. But I kept you because you're exceptional. You've identified threats I didn't know to look for. You've prevented incidents that would have cost me millions in liability and reputation damage. You've made my building safer just by being present. He pulls out a business card, writes something on the back. This is my personal number. I'm expanding to 3 more buildings in the Seattle area over the next 2 years. I want you to head security and intelligence for all of them. Design the systems, hire the team, run the operation. I'm prepared to triple your current salary and give you full autonomy. I take the card, staring at the number. Triple my salary would put me well into 6 figures just from security work, not counting contract translation income. You don't have to decide tonight, Morrison continues. But I wanted to make the offer before someone else does. What happened in there, word will spread. By Monday, you're going to have offers from every security firm and defense contractor in the city. I'm just hoping you'll consider staying with someone who already knows your value. I'll consider it, I say. Thank you. He nods and heads back inside. Maria is grinning. Triple your salary. Head of security for multiple buildings. Full autonomy. Emma, you just went from just a security guard to security empire in one night. I was never just a security guard, I say, but I'm smiling too. No, Maria agrees. You never were. But now everyone else knows it too. We get into her car, and as she pulls out of the parking lot, I look back at the Ashford Hotel one last time. Through the lit windows, I can see the party continuing. Blake is in there somewhere, dealing with his suspended career, his ended engagement, his shattered reputation. His father is in there, probably wondering where he went wrong. Phoebe is in there, presumably having difficult conversations. And I'm leaving. Not running, not hiding, just done. You know what's funny? I say as we merge onto the highway. What? Blake spent 4 months making German comments because he thought it was a safe language. And the whole time, he was just collecting evidence against himself. Every comment, every dismissal, every joke, he was building the case for his own destruction. Maria glances at me. That's what happens when you underestimate people. When you assume that quiet means weak, or overlooked means unimportant. You miss things. Critical things. 6 years in naval special warfare taught me that people are most dangerous precisely when you stop noticing them, I say. But I guess Blake never learned that lesson. He learned it tonight. Yeah. He did. We drive in comfortable silence, Seattle's lights sliding past. My phone continues to buzz, congratulations, job offers, requests for interviews, invitations to speak at veteran events. My life just changed. Dramatically, publicly, irreversibly. Tomorrow, I won't be overlooked anymore. Won't be the quiet security guard people dismiss. The story of tonight will follow me, define me in ways I haven't fully processed. But for right now, in this moment, driving through rain-washed streets with my best friend beside me, I feel something I haven't felt in 3 years. I feel seen. And it feels good. I wake up Sunday morning at 6 a.m., body clock trained by years of military discipline. For a moment, I lie in bed, staring at my ceiling, wondering if last night actually happened or if it was some elaborate dream. Then my phone buzzes. Again. And again. And again. I pick it up to find 147 unread messages, 63 missed calls, and 89 emails. The top email is from Admiral Cartwright with the subject line, Contract Opportunity, Urgent. The second is from a reporter at the Seattle Times, Request for interview regarding Wellington Gala incident. The third is from a defense contractor I worked with years ago, Chief Linguist position, immediate consideration. So it wasn't a dream. I scroll through the messages. Most are congratulatory, some from people I worked with years ago, others from military community members I've never met but who've apparently already heard the story. There are job offers from 3 different security firms. 2 invitation to speak at veteran transition programs. 1 from a literary agent asking if I'd consider writing a book. There's also a message from Blake, sent at 3:47 a.m. Emma, I can't sleep. I keep thinking about everything you said. Everything I didn't know. Everything I should have asked. I don't expect forgiveness. I just need you to know that I finally understand how badly I failed. Not just as a partner, but as a person. You deserved better. You deserved someone who saw you. I'm sorry it took public humiliation for me to realize what I'd lost. I read it twice, then delete it. Some apologies, no matter how sincere, come too late to matter. Maria texts, you alive? The story is everywhere. Check military social media. I open Twitter, or X, or whatever it's called now, and search for my name. Nothing comes up, which is good. But I search for Wellington Group Gala and find dozens of posts. Heard from a friend who was there, Blake Wellington got absolutely destroyed by his ex who turns out to be a Navy linguist who saved his life and he had no idea. Military Twitter is going to love this story about the security guard who was actually a SEAL team linguist and her ex has been mocking her in German for months not knowing she's fluent. Some finance bro found out the hard way that you shouldn't underestimate the quiet person checking your badge. The story is spreading exactly as I predicted. By Monday, this will be military community legend. Maria shows up at my apartment around 2 p.m. with Thai food and wine. "You're a celebrity," she announces, setting bags on my kitchen counter. A military celebrity, which is the weirdest kind of celebrity because you're famous in a community of people who mostly don't exist on public record. I don't want to be famous. Too late. You're the linguist who destroyed her ex at a charity gala. You're going to be a case study in why you shouldn't underestimate people for the next decade. We eat pad thai on my couch while I scroll through the job offers. Morrison's offer is tempting, I say. Triple salary, full autonomy, design my own security infrastructure. But Maria knows me too well. But I've been in security for 3 years as cover. Part of me wants to go back to actual linguistic work full-time. Translation, analysis, consultation. The work I'm actually trained for. You could do both. Consult on security from a linguistic intelligence perspective. There aren't many people with your exact skill set, security operations understanding combined with elite-level translation capabilities. I hadn't thought of that. Design security protocols with linguistic intelligence built in from the start. Exactly. You'd be creating something new. And you'd be in demand. My phone rings. Unknown number. I consider not answering, then decide I need to start dealing with this new reality. Emma Hogan. Ms. Hogan, this is Colonel Patricia Chin from Defense Language Institute. I'm calling to discuss a potential teaching position. We'd like you to develop curriculum based on your operational experience, teaching military linguists how to do what you do, not just translate words, but extract intelligence from communication patterns. I meet Maria's eyes. She's grinning. "Colonel, I'd be very interested in discussing that. Can I call you back tomorrow?" "Of course. Looking forward to speaking with you." I hang up. Maria is already pouring wine. "To new beginnings," she says, raising her glass. "To being seen," I respond. We clink glasses. Monday morning, I show up to Morrison Tower at 6:45 a.m. as usual. I'm not sure what to expect. Will people treat me differently? Will it be awkward? I swipe my badge and enter through the security entrance. Tom, my supervisor, is at the main desk. He looks up and grins. Well. If it isn't the most badass security guard in Seattle. I laugh despite myself. Tom. Everyone knows, Hogan. Morrison called an emergency management meeting yesterday. Told us everything. Explained that you've been working counterintelligence this whole time and we've all been treating you like entry-level security. I am entry-level security. You're a Navy linguist with a top-secret clearance who's been running threat assessment on every person who enters this building for 3 years. You're not entry-level anything. He stands up from the desk. Also, Morrison wants to see you. 10th floor, his personal office. I'll cover the desk. I take the elevator up, nerves fluttering. The 10th floor is executive territory. I've never been up here. Morrison's assistant shows me into an office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seattle. Morrison stands from behind his desk. "Ms. Hogan. Thank you for coming in. I wanted to discuss my offer in more detail." We sit in chairs by the window, and he lays out his vision. Not just head of security, but chief intelligence and security officer for Morrison Properties. Design security infrastructure for 4 buildings. Build a team. Consult on tenant screening from an intelligence perspective. Salary that makes my eyes water. "I'm also giving you a signing bonus," he says, sliding a paper across. "Partially as back pay for 3 years of work that went well beyond your job description. Partially as apology for not realizing sooner exactly who I had working for me." The number on the paper is substantial. Very substantial. "Mr. Morrison, I need to think about this." "Of course. Take the week." "But Emma, and I hope I can call you Emma, you've been hiding your light for 3 years. Whatever you decide to do next, don't hide anymore. The world needs to know people like you exist. That evening, I'm sitting in my home office, reviewing job offers, when my phone rings. It's a number I recognize, my mother. Mama, I answer in German. Emma, Liebling. Your father showed me an article. About something that happened at a gala. I smile. Of course it made the news. What did the article say? That a veteran revealed her identity to her dismissive ex-boyfriend at a charity event. That she'd been a military linguist and he'd been mocking her in German, not knowing she understood. The article didn't name you, but I know my daughter. It was time, Mama. Past time. Her voice is warm, proud. Your grandmother would have loved this. She always said the best revenge is living well and being underestimated. You did both. I learned from the best. What happens now? Now? I look at the stack of offers on my desk, at the life I've been living, at the life I could have. Now I stop being invisible. Now I do work that matters under my own name. Now I build something new. Good, my mother says. It's time the world knew what I've always known, that my daughter is extraordinary. After we hang up, I sit in the quiet of my office, looking at the locked drawer where I've kept my service records hidden for 3 years. I pull it open, take out the folder, and place it on top of my desk. Not hidden anymore. Not secret. Just part of who I am, visible for anyone who asks. My phone buzzes one more time. It's a text from an unknown number. Miss Hogan, this is Phoebe Roderick. I wanted to thank you again for Saturday night. I've spent the last 2 days thinking about what you said, about how the best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't see. I've realized I've been letting people underestimate me too, playing small to make others comfortable. I'm done with that. Thank you for the reminder that we don't have to accept other people's limited perceptions of us. Also, Blake moved out yesterday. The engagement is officially over. I'm doing better than I thought I would be. Hope you are too. I smile and text back, doing great. Good luck with everything. 3 years of being overlooked, dismissed, treated as invisible. 3 years of watching Blake walk past my desk without seeing me. 3 years of building evidence, waiting for the right moment, preparing for a reckoning he never saw coming. And now? Now I'm done hiding. Now the world knows what I always knew, that real power doesn't announce itself, that real strength doesn't need constant validation, that the quiet person in the corner might be the most dangerous person in the room. Blake Wellington learned that lesson the hard way. And I'm just getting started. 6 months later, I'm presenting security and intelligence infrastructure plans to executives from 3 defense contractors. I'm wearing a suit, not a security uniform. My business cards read, Dr. Emma Hogan, Chief Intelligence and Security Officer, Morrison Properties. The doctor is new. I completed my doctorate in applied linguistics with focus on intelligence analysis last month. The system integrates traditional security protocols with linguistic intelligence analysis, I explain. Every security officer receives basic training in behavioral analysis and communication pattern recognition. We're not just checking badges, we're conducting continuous threat assessment using methodologies adapted from military intelligence operations. An executive raises his hand. This seems like significant investment. It is. But consider the cost of a single data breach or industrial espionage incident. Morrison Properties hasn't had a single security incident in 6 months. Our tenants' insurance premiums have dropped by 30%. The executives exchange glances, calculating ROI. After the presentation, David Morrison pulls me aside. Excellent. I have 3 more companies interested. How do you feel about expanding? We need to hire 2 more analysts first. Done. Also, I got a call from Jonathan Wellington. He wants to hire us to overhaul Wellington Group security. Specifically requested you. I pause. That's interesting. I told him I'd ask, but that you'd probably charge double our usual rate. Triple, I say. And I want it in writing that Blake has no involvement. Morrison laughs. Done. Tuesday and Thursday evenings, I teach at Defense Language Institute via secure video conference. Military linguists preparing for operational deployments. Tonight's topic, intelligence extraction from multilingual communications. Language is never just words, I tell the 18 faces on my screen. When someone switches languages mid-conversation, that's information. When they use specific idioms or regional dialects, that's information. Your job isn't just to translate what people say, it's to understand what they mean, what they're hiding, what they reveal without intending to. I pull up Operation Sandstorm, now declassified. We intercepted a phone call discussing the shipment. In Arabic, the word used was tsila, which can mean weapons, but also tools or equipment. The literal translation would be ambiguous. But one speaker used a verb conjugation more common in Egyptian Arabic, another used a dialect marker from the Levant. That told me they weren't from the same region, which suggested this wasn't local, it was coordinated across borders. I walked them through how linguistic details revealed a weapons smuggling network spanning 3 countries. A student raises her hand. Ma'am, how do you develop that level of analytical capability? Practice. And curiosity. Don't just learn languages, learn cultures. Learn history. Learn psychology. Understand why people use the words they use. After class, I get an email, student evaluations are in. You're the highest rated instructor in the program. Several students have requested advanced courses from you next semester. Teaching is rewarding in ways I didn't expect. Passing on what I learned, helping new linguists avoid mistakes, watching them develop skills that will save lives. Saturday afternoon, I'm at the same coffee shop where I met Blake 4 years ago, working on a threat assessment report. The door opens. Blake walks in. We see each other simultaneously. He freezes. I nod politely and return to my work. He approaches my table. Emma. Hi. Can I sit for a minute? I gesture to the empty chair. I've been wanting to talk to you for months, he says. I've been in therapy. Started the week after the gala. Working on validation-seeking behavior, using external markers of success to compensate for internal insecurity. That sounds like progress. It is. I also wanted you to know, I'm not at Wellington Group anymore. I resigned. I'm working at a small nonprofit now. Veterans Employment Services. That surprises me. Really? Really? Turns out I'm good at helping people find jobs when I stop caring about whether those jobs make me look important. Working with veterans reminds me every day of what real service looks like. What I failed to recognize when it was right in front of me. I study his face. He looks different, more genuine. I'm glad you're doing better, Blake. Are you? Better, I mean. I'm exceptional. I'm running security and intelligence for multiple properties. I'm teaching military linguists. I'm consulting on projects I can't discuss. I'm doing exactly what I'm meant to be doing under my own name without hiding. He nods slowly. You deserve that. We sit in silence. Can I ask you something? Blake says. Why didn't you tell me during our relationship? Because you never asked. And because you'd already decided who I was. You saw a security guard and made assumptions. If I'd told you the truth, you wouldn't have believed me. You would have found reasons to diminish it. So I let you believe what you wanted. I'm sorry. For all of it. You deserved better. I know I did. That's why I didn't settle for your perception of me. Blake stands. I won't bother you anymore. I just needed you to know that I understand now. What I lost. Who you are. Blake? I call as he turns. He turns back. The fact that you're in therapy, that you're working with veterans, that you're genuinely trying to be better? That matters. Not to us, there's no us anymore. But it matters for everyone else who interacts with you. So keep doing the work. He nods, something like gratitude in his expression, and leaves. Blake Wellington is becoming a better person. That's not my victory, it's his. But I'm glad the gala wasn't just about destruction. It was also about transformation. 1 year after the gala, I'm keynoting a veterans transition conference in Seattle. 300 veterans in the audience. The skills you developed in service are more valuable than you realize, I tell them. But sometimes you have to create the job that uses them. I designed a position that merged security operations with linguistic intelligence analysis because nobody was offering that combination. I built a bridge between military expertise and civilian need. After the keynote, dozens of veterans line up. Each has a story about feeling overlooked, underutilized, dismissed. I give each the same advice: don't let civilian ignorance of military capabilities diminish your sense of worth. You know what you're capable of. Find people who recognize that, or create opportunities where your capabilities matter. And never accept someone else's limited perception of your potential. As the conference ends, I check my phone. Email from Jonathan Wellington. Emma, your security infrastructure recommendations have been implemented across all our properties. We've seen a 60% reduction in security incidents. More importantly, Blake has become one of our most successful veterans employment counselors. He's placed 47 veterans in meaningful positions in the past year. I'd like to think your demonstration sparked real change in him. Thank you, Jonathan. I smile. Transformation takes time, but it happens. That evening, Maria and I meet for dinner, celebrating. Morrison Properties just won a major federal building contract, and my linguistic intelligence protocols are being adopted as industry standard. You did it, Maria says, raising her glass. You went from overlooked to industry leader in 1 year. I was never overlooked. I was just waiting for the right moment to be seen. Fair distinction. So what's next? I think about the scared young woman who left active duty 3 years ago. About the security guard who let people walk past without seeing her. About the person I've become, confident, visible, unapologetic. I think I want to write a book. About linguistic intelligence, about translation in military contexts, about how communication analysis saves lives. Make it accessible for civilian readers but detailed for military professionals. That's ambitious. I'm an ambitious person. I just hid it for a while. Maria clinks her glass against mine. To ambition. To visibility. To Emma Hogan, who stopped letting other people define her. To knowing your worth and waiting for exactly the right moment to prove it. We drink to that. Later that night, in my home office, no longer locked, no longer hidden, I open a new document. Chapter 1, The Overlooked Linguist. I begin typing, telling the story of a woman who learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is wait. Wait, watch, document, and then reveal the truth at exactly the right moment for maximum impact. Blake Wellington thought he was mocking a simple security guard. He was actually educating a Navy linguist on exactly how to dismantle him. And that is the most important lesson: never underestimate the quiet person who's listening. They might understand every word. They might be documenting everything. And they might be waiting for exactly the right moment to show you who they really are. Real power doesn't announce itself. It just waits. And when the moment comes, it speaks with devastating precision. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.